What is up, you guys? Wonder Bro here. The compulsion that nobody seems to talk about, right? So you're trying to better yourself. You're trying to recover from anxiety, OCD, whatever the case may be. You go online, you start looking for advice. Everyone wants to talk about, okay, don't do the physical compulsions, right? Don't do the reassurance. Don't drink the water obsessively. Don't escape or flee the situation. Don't pace around the house. All these pieces of advice are true. They're very good. You should not do those physical compulsions, whatever those physical compulsions may be. However, there's one compulsion that everybody I've ever came across since I've been doing this, right? I've been doing this a long time. There's one compulsion that everybody has in common, and it is their biggest compulsion, right? And it's the one compulsion that unfortunately is not really spoken about a whole lot, right? And that compulsion is rumination. Rumination, or you can call it contemplation, right? It's when a person spends so much time in their head thinking about these upsetting things, trying to solve these upsetting things, trying to figure out these upsetting things, right? There's a difference between, let's say, having a thought, right? A thought that's just kind of stuck in your head or keeps coming and going, or thoughts. There's a difference between that and spending a whole lot of mental energy obsessing about that thing, contemplating that thing. If you don't like the word rumination, use contemplation. We all know what it means to contemplate something. You sit around and you think about it. You try to solve it, you try to figure it out, you try to see where it takes you, right? And you're just sitting there in your head contemplating it. So that is the one compulsion that I notice everyone's got in common, and nobody seems to talk about it, right? At least not to the degree that I think they should. So this compulsion, this rumination, this contemplation that people do on a daily basis, the problem is people think this is something that's happening to them and they can't control it, they can't stop it. This isn't true. Again, there's a big difference between having a thought and contemplating over the thought. There's a big difference between having a feeling and contemplating over the feeling. I'm not saying you're not going to have feelings. I'm not saying you're not going to have thoughts, right? But to contemplate it is something that you do. It's not something that happens to you, right? It is a compulsion. And until that compulsion is eliminated, you will continue to add a ton of stress to your nervous system. So you're walking around every single day, pretty much in 24 hours of contemplation. You're contemplating that thought you had or having. You're contemplating that feeling. You're contemplating your own recovery. You're contemplating anxiety. Anytime you spend a lot of time contemplating something upsetting to your nervous system, right, to your brain, you're putting a beating on your nervous system. So it's no wonder people aren't getting better, right? It's no wonder people aren't getting better. You can eliminate a ton of compulsions. But if you're still contemplating, which again just means ruminating, if you're still contemplating most of your day, it's no wonder your nerves aren't catching a break. And again, this contemplation is not something that just happens to you, it's something you do. It's a compulsion. It may be so habitual at this point for you that it doesn't feel like it's something you're doing, but it's something you're doing. When you sit and again, put a ton of mental energy into contemplating something, right? That is something you do. It's not something that happens to you. I'm not denying that it could be such a strong habit and addiction that it feels natural. I'm not denying that it could be such a habit that it seems like it takes you no effort to do it, right? But it is, at the end of the day, a compulsion. It is something you do by choice. Now, we have to work on breaking this. Throughout the years here on the channel, we talk about living your life as if you're already healed. That takes care of the physical side of compulsions. And mentally, not, we used to call it not following your thoughts and feelings down the mental rabbit hole, aka engaging in that storytelling. Um, and lately, we've been calling it passing up that temptation to engage with the thoughts and feelings. And this is just a new way of putting that, right? Stop contemplating. If you don't like the word rumination, if that's too confusing, stop contemplating. Everybody knows what it means to contemplate something. You have contemplated many things in your life. You know what that word means, right? You know what it feels like when you're sitting there and you just keep contemplating something. So what I'm asking you to do is to stop contemplating your anxiety, no matter what form that takes. Physical symptoms, stop contemplating them. Thoughts, stop contemplating them. They can be there. You can have a thought in your head that keeps coming and going, or maybe it's a little sticky. You can have a feeling, but don't contemplate it. Don't sit down and put all of your attention, energy, and, put so much force behind sitting there and contemplating these thoughts and these feelings. Don't contemplate, like I said, your recovery. Don't contemplate the anxiety, right? The more you contemplate upsetting things, the bigger they become. The more your brain thinks they're important, the more of a beating your nervous system takes. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who will fight back on this again and say things like, no, I can't stop it. It's just something that happens to me. No, it's not. I, I, I need you to know this. It is not something, rumination is not something that just happens to you, right? Thoughts just happen to you. Feelings just happen to you. But to contemplate things is an act. It is a behavior. It is a compulsion, right? So the next big question is, well, how do we stop it? What do we do about it, Wonder Bro? It's not so much a technique as it is just becoming aware that you're contemplating something and deciding, I'm not going to contemplate that, right? Step away for a few moments. And I can hear it now, people out there in the comments. It's not that easy. It's not. Listen, the more you practice breaking this behavior, the more you will unwire your brain to want to contemplate things. Don't turn it into a technique, because then you're just going to sit there and contemplate if you're doing it right, which is just more contemplation. It's just more rumination, right? So instead of turning it into a big technique that you're then worried about doing right or wrong, which again is just more of the contemplation, just catch yourself contemplating something. Here I am. I can tell I'm stuck in my head contemplating that thought I had 2 hours ago. The thought happened 2 hours ago, or it happened 2 months ago, and I'm still contemplating it to this day. I'm still sitting there trying to solve it. I'm trying to figure it out. What does it mean? Could that happen? Catch yourself doing that each time. Simply decide to drop that and step away from that and continue on with your day. The thought may still be there. The feeling may still be there, but you've dropped following it. You've dropped the story. You've dropped the contemplation. You may catch yourself contemplating again 5 seconds later, 10 seconds later, 15 seconds later. Come back in again and say, you can be gentle about this, not in a big panic. Come back in again. There I am. I'm ruminating. I'm contemplating. So the practice is just really catching yourself in the act. It's catching yourself with your hand in that cookie jar. It's catching yourself doing that bad behavior. If someone wanted to quit smoking, right? If I wanted to quit smoking, I would just have to make the decision to quit smoking. So each time I go to smoke, I'd say, no, I'm not going to do that behavior anymore, right? And now I may catch myself going to smoke a lot because it's so habitual at this point. And again, I would just rinse and repeat, no, I'm not going to do that. All right. And that's the same thing you're doing with this behavior, this choice that you make to contemplate things. You're catching yourself in the act of doing that bad thing you don't want to do and making the choice not to. So it's just a choice you make over and over again until that becomes your new habit, right? So don't ever complicate this, right? Don't get in your head and start contemplating, do I understand what he's saying? Can I do it? Am I doing it right, or am I wrong? Doing it wrong? That's just more of the bad behavior. That would be like me saying I'm going to quit smoking, and then as I'm smoking a whole pack of cigarettes, I'm saying to myself, I wonder if I'm going to quit smoking. Yeah, I'm going to quit smoking. Doesn't make any sense. So don't turn this into a technique. Instead, live your life as if you're already healed. Do things you want to do. Pick up your hobbies. And as you're sitting there and you're noticing that you're contemplating that thought, you're sitting there trying to figure out that thought, you're sitting there engaged in that thought or that feeling, simply say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to step away from that for a little bit. Or I'm going to drop that contemplation. It's a choice you make. Contemplating is something you do. It's not something that happens to you, right? And again, contemplation, rumination, same thing. I just like to use different terms. But since it's something that you do and not something that happens to you, it's something that you can decide to start not doing. And I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not saying you won't have to catch yourself a lot, right? I'm not saying it's not a strong habit. It is. I'm not saying it's not scary to make the choice to stop contemplating something. It is scary because you want to contemplate it because you think doing that you're going to find an answer or that it's going to keep you safe, right? But it's actually what's causing your disorder. So you have to make a firm decision each time. It's not worth it. I can't afford to contemplate this any longer. All right, you guys. I love you so much. If you would like more insight on this and work with me one-on-one, let me know. Drop me an email. Shoot me a DM on any of the Vacate Fear social media. I've got different timings, different prices. We can do messaging. We can do calling. But yeah, if you want more of an insight on this, just get up with me. We'll work one-on-one. I offer reoccurring. And I think that's everything. Drop a comment down below. Did this video help you? Did it make you realize something? Are you realizing now how much contemplation you do? It's no wonder you're not getting better. All right. I love you guys. You can and will work on this thing, and I'll see you soon. Stay awesome.